In our last module of executive briefings for cybersecurity leadership, we figured out who is in the room and what drives them. Now it's time to learn their lingo. We're going to frame cybersecurity in business terms that hits them where it counts. Dollars, cost, and revenue, they simply can't brush off. It's not about building a business case that just wins. We're building one that dominates. So let's begin to shift gears in this module and frame cybersecurity in business terms that executives will eat right up. Let's talk about why business framing is so critical when communicating with executives and how it can make or break your ability to get support for your initiatives. On the left, we have what I call the tech talk fails approach. Too often, we dive straight into technical details like firewall specs or server patches, thinking that's what will convince decision makers. But here's the reality. Executives don't care about the nitty-gritty. Those details, while important to us, make their eyes glaze over. They're not focused on the tech itself. They're focused on outcomes. That's where business framing comes in, as shown in the middle. When you frame security or any technical initiative in terms of business outcomes, everything changes. It's about answering the question, what does this mean for the organization? When you could show how your work drives revenue, reduces risk, or supports strategic goals, you could get their immediate attention. Suddenly, you're not just tech support. You're a strategic advisor they could trust. And here's a real-world example of this in action. On the right, one CISO pitched a critical initiative by framing it as endpoint protection deployed, but they didn't stop there. They translated that into something executives could instantly grasp, a safeguard for the business. The result? That pitch secured $10 million in customer transactions approved in minutes. That's the power of speaking their language. So the takeaway here is simple. To get buy-in, we need to shift our mindset. Stop leading with the tech and start leading with the business impact. That's how we turn ideas into action. Now that we've talked about the importance of business framing, let's dive into the specific metrics that executives actually care about. These are the lenses through which they evaluate every initiative, including ours in cybersecurity. First, let's start with cost. A single breach could cost an organization $4 million on average. But here's the flip side. Investing in prevention, like robust security measures, costs just $400,000. That's a 10-to-1 return on investment. Executives hate financial surprises. So when we frame security as cost prevention, we're speaking directly to their priorities. Next, revenue. Downtime is a revenue killer. 1 hour offline could cost $275,000 in lost sales. Every minute a system is down, the bottom line takes a hit. By protecting their income streams, we're showing how security isn't just a cost center, it's a revenue protector. Then, there's reputation. A data leak could drop customer trust by 25%, and clients aren't quick to forgive. Brand damage often lasts for longer than the technical issues we fix. When we emphasize protection, we're safeguarding something executives value even more than short-term profits, their reputation. Finally, compliance. GDPR non-compliance could lead to fines as high as $20 million. And that's just one regulation. Regulatory fines are brutal, and they come with added scrutiny. By positioning security as compliance insurance, we're addressing a major risk executives are already losing sleep over. So what does this mean for us? To get executive buy-in, we need to tie our work directly to these metrics: cost, revenue, reputation, and compliance. When we show how security impacts these areas, we're not just asking for a budget. We're offering a solution to their biggest concerns. how do we actually connect cyber threats to the business outcomes that executives care about? Let's break it down into a simple 4-step process that could help us bridge the gap between technical risks and business priorities. Step 1. Identify the threats. We're talking about things like ransomware, phishing, and insider threats. These are the technical concerns we deal with every day, but executives don't speak this language. So our job is to translate these risks into something they could relate to. Step 2. Apply if-then logic. This is where we make the connection explicit. For example, if we're hit by a ransomware attack, then we could lose $2 million in sales due to downtime. By showing cause and effect in clear terms, we make the risk tangible and relevant to their world. Step 3. Quantify the impact. Numbers speak louder than words. Take the Equifax breach. They lost $700 million due to their data breach. In our case, we might estimate a $3 million loss for a similar incident. Using real examples and concrete figures drives urgency and shows executives the scale of what's at stake. Finally, step 4. Secure buy-in. When we connect these threats to dollars, customers, and trust, those key metrics we talked about earlier, executives start to see cybersecurity as their fight, too. It's no longer just a tech issue. It's a business imperative that can't ignore. By following these steps, we could transform how we communicate about cyber threats. Instead of getting lost in technical jargon, we're speaking directly to what keeps executives at night. And that's how we get the support we need to protect the organization. Now that we understand how to link cyber threats to business outcomes, let's talk about how to package that into a compelling business case that gets executives to say yes. It comes down to 3 key steps: defining the problem, presenting the solution, and creating urgency. First, state the problem clearly and make it specific to your business. For example, you might say, a breach risks $5 million in losses for us based on our customer base and revenue streams. This isn't a generic statistic. It's a tailored risk that hits home. By framing the problem in terms of their business, you grab their attention right away. Second, present the solution, but keep the focus on outcomes, not technical specs. Instead of diving into the details of firewalls or encryption, say something like, a $500,000 investment in security controls will protect those millions in potential losses. Executives don't need to know the tech. They need to know what the investment achieves for the business. Finally, create urgency. Show why action is needed now. For example, you might say, our competitors got hit by a breach just last month, and it cost them dearly. Highlighting a recent relevant event makes the threat feel immediate and presses the point that delaying action isn't an option. When you combine these 3 elements, a clear problem, a results-focused solution, and a sense of urgency, you're not just asking for a budget. You're giving executives a reason to act. This approach turns your proposal into a no-brainer, aligning directly with their priorities and concerns. When creating your business case, the goal is to focus on ROI or risk avoidance, because that's what executives respond to. Let's break this down into a 3-tiered approach that prioritizes financial impact and builds a compelling argument. At the top tier, Tier 1, we have the ROI-based case. This is about showing the multiplier effect of your investment. For example, a CISO pitched a $250,000 firewall saves $3 million in ransomware losses. That's a 12-to-1 return on investment. The board saw the value immediately and approved it in just 10 minutes. When you frame your proposal this way, you're showing how security drives significant financial returns. Next, at Tier 2, is the risk-based case. Here, you highlight the costs you're helping the business avoid. Another CISO framed it as $200,000 now or $2 million in cleanup costs later. This approach emphasizes risk avoidance. But notice the difference. The CFO could argue with the math, questioning the likelihood of the breach or the exact cost. While still effective, it's less concrete than the ROI approach and might face more scrutiny. Finally, at Tier 3, we have cost-benefit analysis, where you compare spending options. This is more detailed and analytical, often involving spreadsheets and trade-offs. While it's thorough, it could slow down the decision-making process and doesn't pack the same punch as the first two tiers. Executives want clarity, not complexity. The key takeaway here, as highlighted at the bottom, is this. You're not selling technology. You're selling business survival and financial protection. Whether you focus on ROI or risk avoidance, the goal is to make the financial stakes crystal clear. That's what gets you the approval you need to move forward. Let's wrap up with some real-world success stories that show how powerful business framing could be when done right. These examples demonstrate how focusing on business outcomes led to fast approvals and significant wins for cybersecurity teams. First, the $10 million transaction shield. A CISO reframed endpoint protection as a safeguard for $10 million in customer transactions. By tying the initiative directly to revenue protections, executives saw the value immediately and approved the project on the spot. Next, the $300K prevention play. A security leader told their CFO $300,000 now saves $3 million later in breach costs. The focus on cost avoidance and the clear financial logic got the check signed the same day. No hesitation. Then we have the shipping savior. A CISO explained, if a DDoS attack hits our shipping operations, we're looking at $150,000 in late fees. By connecting the threat to a specific operational impact, the COO funded the protection overnight. Finally, the compliance win. A team positioned their initiative as a $100,000 investment prevents $20 million in GDPR fines. Framing security as compliance insurance spoke directly to the board's concerns, and they gave a unanimous approval. What do all these stories have in common? In each case, the teams didn't talk about tech. They talked about business impact. They connected their initiatives to revenue, costs, operations, and compliance, and that's what got them the green light. These examples show that when you speak the language of executives, you don't just get a seat at the table, you get results. And that's your edge. Framing security as their business lifeline, hitting their metrics, tying threats to their bottom line. That's how we're going to craft a case so sharp they can't tippy-toe around. And remember, we're not just protecting, we're handing them a victory they claim as their own. But we know who actually got the work done. In the next module, we're going to be structuring your briefing to hit like a freight train. We're going to continue to forge you into the security leader executives never knew they needed.